Oh man, that is
The
so
refinements
awesome.
and the improvements, right?
Oh my word. Unreal. Totally unreal. Okay, now I'm confused again.
No, no, no.
Remember how it pop up and it used to pop up and say the description.
Okay.
It didn't do it.
Why?
I don't know. I do not know. It added the description. So I'm gonna have to switch over here and edit this deal because it just put in, and actually it put in the one from 2 episodes ago. So, like, that one is
What?
just locked in. It did it last week
Why
too.
did it do that?
I don't know. Okay. Alright, so it's updated now. It's updated now. I don't know. I wonder if I don't think YouTube puts a description on it,
Okay.
right? I don't think so. So I think it's just Facebook does that. So, alright, we're updated there.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go in. I wonder what Twitter does.
Twitter.
I'm sorry. X.
X.
Alright.
Oh, shucks.
Good old Elon.
Uh-huh. Why is he messing with us?
Good old Elon. Alright, oops, I did not mean to do that.
I can't remember who it was, but I saw somebody said, it might have been Mark Hadaball.
Oh, Happy?
Yeah, Happy Hadaball. He posted a deal saying somebody tried to post this on their church family page or whatever. It was a whole deal about how Donald Trump is the Antichrist and Elon Musk is the false prophet.
Man, that's some cool theology. How do you get there?
Mhm.
That's amazing.
It's yeah, they said that it was obvious that the gunshot
Mhm.
to the head
Oh,
was
yeah, a
yeah,
wound, the
yeah,
wound to the head,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. The wound to the head that was healed. Yep.
Well, I'm old enough to remember when Mikhail Gorbachev was the Antichrist
Yeah.
because he had the birthmark
Mark.
deal on his head and whatever, and that was
Yep.
you gotta
Yep.
love it.
People, hey, you know what? It never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah.
Just really, it never ceases to amaze me.
It doesn't. And, here, like, we joke about it and whatever, but I do think that's part of the enemy's strategy, right?
Yeah.
Because you see so much of that stuff that you literally roll your eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
then
which
people
is
are
kind
like,
of
"Yeah, oh, geez.
it's kind of like the conspiracy theory psyop,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Was it you that talked about that the other day?
I don't think so.
That like the CIA or whoever introduced the term conspiracy
Oh,
theory?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I did mention that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see, you throw out so many good things, you don't even remember
I
all
don't
of them.
remember. I don't remember. No. Well, you know what's funny
Yeah.
is somebody credible. I can't remember who this was, but somebody pretty credible wrote an article. Oh,
Yeah.
I know who it was. It wasn't an article. I think it was I think it might have been a segment on his podcast, but I think it was Joe Rogan
Mm,
who said that the deep state, the media, the 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 power establishment
okay.
created the biggest conspiracy psyop against Donald Trump that's ever been perpetrated in American history.
Yeah.
He said, he said, and it was pretty crazy because he quotes Hillary Clinton talking about what we need to do, and it was during the campaign in 2016.
Oh, my word.
And Hillary Clinton was saying, We need to deport everyone who's here illegally, starting with those who have had criminal activity either here or in the country of origin.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I saw that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it says Hillary Clinton basically was actually had a stronger position in 2016 on immigration because she said not only deportation, but those who stay need to be fined and pay their back taxes on anything that they've earned before they have any kind of a pathway to citizenship.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. So it was talking about how that, but it was a psychological operation. It was a misinformation, the misinformation campaign. I mean, it's like Joe Rogan was saying, the misinformation campaign came from the deep state. It came from media as the mechanism of perpetuating the message that Donald Trump was all of these things. And he said, but the facts don't bear it out.
Interesting.
So crazy.
You know, maybe we should do a conversation, Ken. Not today. We're not going to do it today because we got a good one today.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to do a conversation one of these days about just the difficulty of this age. Like everybody's seen, you know, Kamala came out and had that like 25-second video or whatever.
Right.
And then
The one where
somebody
they
did
said unburdened by what has been.
Did you see the AI version of that?
No.
They did an AI version and she starts out and then she stops and grabs like a bottle of wine and starts chugging it.
No way.
Brett. Oh, in there for a second. Am I back?
You're back.
Am I back?
Yes.
Okay. So she's chugging a bottle of wine, then she's like acting all drunk and whatever. And what's crazy is, bro, is like if you don't know, I mean, obviously, I mean, most people are in on the joke or whatever. But like, dude, can you imagine, okay, how far it's come in the last, what, 5 years?
Bro.
So imagine what it's going to be like in the next decade, how people are going to be able to use that AI stuff. Like,
dude,
it's going to be, you're going to have such a hard time discerning what's genuine and what's real. It's crazy.
Here's the thing. Yeah, right. And here's the crazy deal. I saw a guy talking about this. He's a AI expert. And he said that right now we are at the stage where it is moving from Atari to Super Nintendo.
Oh my, that's a great analogy.
He said
moving from Pong to Super Mario Brothers.
That's what he said. He said, and then
that's awesome.
He said within 1 to 3 years, he said it's going to move from Super Nintendo to like Nintendo 64 and PlayStation. And he said, and then he said, then 1 to 3 years from that, or 2 to 3 years. So he said, it's going to be like a 5 to 10 year transition. He said, it's going to move to like PlayStation 3. He said, that's where, he said, if you look at that progression of video games, he said, that's where that time frame is going to produce where we'll be in 5 to 10 years with AI.
That is wild. Holy cow. That's
Which
crazy.
Donkey Kong was fun. Donkey mine. What was it the mine? What was that called? It was the Donkey Kong and it was the mine game. They were riding in those coal cars on the tracks. And
what was that?
What was that called?
Man, I don't know. Somebody have to help us out on that one.
Audience.
I should know that. I mean, I used to go to the Pinball Palace and play. There was Donkey Kong. Then there was another one. It was like a burger thing. It was kind of the same premise. You climb up the deal and whatever. Dude, that's wild. Centipede. Remember Centipede and Galaga?
Yeah. Yes.
Those are all.
It was Donkey Kart Donkey Kong Minecart Madness.
Minecart Madness. Look at you.
Yeah.
Dude, how many hours did we spend on Super Mario Brothers trying to get to
Bro.
the end of that bad boy?
Bro. And you know what's funny is we were Thanksgiving, we went to Stephanie's mom and dad's, and all the grandkids were there with the exception of Nathan and his wife, who now live in Italy. And Stephanie said they were in, I can't remember what they were doing, but they might have been in watching somebody turned on like Apple TV or something, and they were streaming the Dallas football game or whatever it was. And she said I looked in and saw Matthew and Jonathan and all, the grandkids in there, and fully expected to see them trying to take on the next level of Donkey Kong, or the next level of that's, I mean, that was they filled the room with that. And so, they're
That's
now
so amazing, man.
they now have their own children. But
Man, and think about how amazing games like Double Dribble.
yeah,
Remember the
yeah,
corner three? The corner three
yeah,
was unstoppable in Double Dribble.
yeah,
And then RBI baseball. Dude, we used to play RBI baseball. And now you look back at those,
yeah,
like
terrible.
compared to modern games, like what?
They were
What
terrible.
in the world?
They were terrible. Kids today would probably look at like the Atari, like Pong Sports and whatever, and be like, "Why would you even play this stuff?
Exactly.
Why would you even bother with it, man? I'd rather, It's kind of like, it's funny because it's kind of like trying to, like playing the field goal game, with the little triangle
Oh
football
yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
or the basketball. Oh, here you go. When we started playing, here you go. When we got a Super Nintendo,
Yeah.
we totally stopped playing that game where you got the little thing that you flipped
Oh yeah.
and you
Yeah, the
shot a
basketball
basketball.
game.
You
Yeah.
flipped it, and the one we had was a full court version where I was on one side and you were on the other side, and we were trying to see who could get all the balls into the
Yeah.
basket first.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about the little football game. I got through 4 years of German class in Mr. Obermeyer's class, and pretty much all we did the entire 4 years was play constant leagues of football. So
That's awesome.
there we go. Alex chimes in.
Come on,
16 still
Alex.
plays with Nintendo 64. Let's
Let's go.
go.
Dude, hey, Alex,
Retro.
I've actually heard that like Super Nintendo and whatever. I went downstairs and found a Super Nintendo in the basement, and somebody was telling me like, dude, those things are going like on eBay,
Yeah.
like they're like the as vinyl records were to the mid like 2010s and teens. Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64 are now to gamers. It's like
Yeah.
retro.
Yeah. Mr. Wizard commented on Instagram, Donkey Kong Country.
Oh yeah, that's right. Donkey Kong Country.
Let's go. That's awesome, man.
Yes.
That's awesome. Appreciate that from Mr. Wizard. So we got a wide variety of people
That's it.
today.
That's it.
YouTube, Instagram, X, Facebook. It's all over the place today. So this is cool, man. We have a good conversation about this. But we do have a conversation. So you ready to get started?
I am.
Are we ready to rock and roll today? We're a little off schedule. We're you've been gone. I'm gone this week.
Yep.
So got just we'll mention this again, but just so people know, next Thursday, not Tuesday, next Thursday we'll be recording. So just got to get through the holidays. You know what I'm saying?
You got to get through the holidays, man.
That's all
And
it
by
is.
the way, just a pro tip for everyone.
Pro tip.
Take care of your clothes. I had a time hop from my photo album on my iPhone.
Yeah.
And this very sweater that I'm wearing today, you see it?
I like it.
This very sweater. Yeah, it's kind of, it's got a little design in it and whatever. This very sweater was time hopped of November of 2012.
Nice.
And I was standing in front of the biggest horse in Ohio called Big Ben. He was a Belgian horse at Hirschberger's in Amish country, and I was wearing this sweater.
It's not surprising at all.
Pro tip: take care of your clothes.
That's
They'll
awesome.
stay. Hey,
Hey,
if you take care of your clothes will take care of you.
speaking of which, right, for real. Speaking of which, Ken,
Yeah.
shout out to Cindy Hopper.
Ah,
I'm sporting the Mobilized Church podcast
right.
windbreaker today.
Hey,
So
I've got
thanks to
one
her.
exactly like that. It's the one that's it's the light, but it's a cold weather, but it's light. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what I got.
Right.
That's what it is. That's
I have one
amazing.
over here in the same color, black with the gray or silver
Yeah.
stitching.
Yeah.
I have one over here. It's for John Hummel, but it's an extra large. And someone said to me, I don't know if John Hummel will be able to wear that. So we need John Hummel to chime in, John. Can you wear an extra large, or do we need her to make one in a different size?
Yeah.
We didn't say
Does he need a large?
which
Does he need
direction.
Yeah.
Will an extra large fit you, or do you need one in a different size? John Hummel, we need you to chime in, please.
There we go. All right. You ready to rock and roll?
3, 2, 1 me.
Let's get this party started. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mobilized Church podcast. This is Chris Dillingham, alongside my big brother Ken Dillingham, Jr. the Third, fresh off an Amish Thanksgiving.
That sounds like a Hallmark.
You're not even
a Hallmark movie.
Oh, bro, did we talk about this last time? There's a Hallmark movie.
Yeah.
There's a Hallmark movie. Somebody needs to help me out with the title on this. There's a Hallmark movie called A Christmas Touchdown, a Chiefs.
It's it. You just said it, dude. You
Is
just
that what it
said
is?
It's they were literally watching it. It's the guy, I think, he's connected to the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's
he's
some
like
kind
the
of a
CEO
Christmas
or something, right?
Yeah, it's the Christmas lights, and the house does all the Chiefs. Yeah, yep.
Let me just clarify that. I don't know. I've not seen those, but I just saw that. I saw there was like an advertisement on Twitter or something, or on X, and I was like, dude, like they're just leaning into the Taylor Swift,
it's hilarious.
Travis Kelce thing, and come on, man, seriously,
Come on,
what are we doing? What are we doing,
bro? And by the way, the Hallmark movie that you told me about that you liked, the one that was like the Great Race. Whatever, bro.
Whatever.
No, but they do have one.
Whatever.
The ladies were telling me that there's a what's it called? What is it called? There's the Great Race, or is that what they call it? Is that
the
like
one
a show?
Yeah, something. It's something to race.
Whatever.
Something.
It's and so they were. Yeah, the show was they were in the Great Race thing. And
stop it.
That's what they were in, and apparently people fall in love in Hallmark videos.
The best ones are there's a couple on, they do like TikToks or whatever, reels that show up on X and whatever.
Amazing Race. Yeah. Amazing Race.
Amazing Race. There we go. Amazing Race.
Yeah.
And Tony Richards is familiar with his Hallmark movies. He knows his Hallmark. He's sitting home watching Hallmark movies today.
Apparently, Pastor Richard.
He's a big Hallmark guy. Yes. No, this couple does.
He's a romantic. He's kind of romantic. You can tell.
That's right. They do like mock videos of Hallmark, and they're amazing. They're absolutely hilarious. Where he's like a lumberjack, and she's from New York. You know, she's coming home from New York City, an executive, and then he reveals that he's rich, and it's pretty funny. So Tony Richard,
that's awesome. Oh, so man, I love.
That's so good. Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
It's a
It's a
Christmas
Christmas
miracle.
miracle.
It's
Oh,
a Christmas miracle.
it is a Christmas miracle.
Yes.
Apparently Gary Gauthier is a Hallmark guy as well. We're getting a lot
Hey,
of
but what we could do is we can all defer to our wives. We could
exactly.
all just say, "Look, to spend quality time with my wife, I'm willing to watch a Hallmark movie," and that's the root card.
There you go.
That's
There
the
you
root
go.
card.
Yeah, yeah. That's gonna get you some points for
That's the
sure.
root
Some.
card.
Did you have a good Thanksgiving in Amish country?
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Our son and his wife from Louisiana
Nice.
were there, and they got to go out and take pictures in the snow. It was snowing while we were there,
Crazy.
and
Did
they
you see
were
the game in
excited.
Buffalo last night?
I actually was.
What?
I actually was. I was doing a little studying, and my wife yelled and said, "You got to get in here. They're paying these people $20 an hour to shovel snow." And she was giving me the
Bro.
full report. So for me to spend quality time with my wife, I got to come in and watch the Buffalo
That's
Bills
amazing.
game beat
That's
the San
amazing.
Francisco 49ers, who looked like they had never walked on snow, let alone played
There
it.
was one funny play at I think it's near the beginning of the game, and a lineman went defensive lineman for San Francisco
Yeah.
literally did not touch anybody and just fell flat on his face. And just they look like they've never been in snow before their entire lives. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful
awesome.
thing. So 2 feet of snow, they can keep it. It's a little cold here today, but oh, bro, we're missing our chief meteorologist, Kim Bastarkey, today.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to just give us a. Can you do one on the spot?
Yes.
No hesitation. Just immediately went with yes.
Yes. Chief Meteorologist Ken Bastarkey's not with us today, but he sends in his report. It's going to be a frigid 4 degrees inside my bloodstream.
Oh man, for real. It feels like it. If people hear like kind of this noise, not quite sure what it is, it's probably my heater. I've got a heater right by my desk that just keeps me warm here. So it's got to freezing today, but
awesome.
it's a good day. And we're on a little bit of a different schedule for those that are listening. We're recording this on a Monday because tomorrow we're heading out. My wife and I coming up. In about 8 days, 8 days, celebrate our 30th wedding anniversary. Can you believe that? 30 years, bro. That's wild.
30 years.
I got married when I was 12.
Yeah. John Madden's like, 30 years. That's like 3 decades.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So next week we'll be recording on Thursday. So just a little program information there for people. But we're here today, ready to rock and roll, and we got a good one today, Ken.
Man, hey, listen,
Tell me.
folks, call somebody. Go send a link out. Call somebody, connect with them, because today we're going to be talking about what is. You want whatever word you want to use. If you're talking molecular biology, you can talk about the nucleus. If you're talking about geological science, you could talk about the epicenter. If you're talking about if you're talking about the automotive industry, you could say this is the fuel in the engine of the multiplication car. But anyway, at the end of the day, we are going to be talking about what is the very most fundamental concept in our missional principle.
What a setup. What a setup that was.
Yeah, that was.
I mean,
you could spike one off of that set, off the forehead of any college volleyball player, regardless of their gender identification.
Oh boy, here we go. We're gonna get flagged again. We're getting flagged again.
Hey,
That's awesome. That's awesome. You've been teetering the line today, so I feel like it could be this could be one of those days where we get flagged.
I'm walking the tightrope, Bubba. I am walking the tightrope.
That's awesome. All right, so with that introduction, man, let's get into it today, and as you stated, this is, and I'm gonna let you, because you made a statement earlier, and I want you to kind of use this as the launching pad for the conversation
You
today.
know, I was literally thinking, Chris, it's funny you said the launching pad.
Yeah.
I was literally thinking, as Elon Musk would say, let's launch this puppy.
See, there you go. Let's launch this puppy. I heard him say it many times.
That's right. I mean, of course, in our private discussions, but we won't drop names.
Right, yeah, for real.
Right.
For real. So the launching pad for the conversation today, you made a statement, and I don't wanna give it all away, because I want you to kind of I want you to kinda talk about this.
Yeah.
But you talked about, like, in our really brief pre-show discussion, you talked about how that you can have all of these other pieces
Mhm.
in place,
Right.
but if you're missing what we're gonna talk about today, and so let's just let the cat out of the bag. What do you
Dude,
say?
you know what I started to say? I started to say, here, just let me know what we're doing. You're the moderator. I literally was saying, I was going to say, I'm a mind mapper.
Yeah.
I was going to say, here's what you could do. You could either let the cat out of the bag
See?
and we'll dissect it, or
Ah,
or together we'll take all the pieces and put them together and build the Lego set.
there you go.
Whichever direction you want to go, I'm good.
Well, my favorite class in high school was advanced biology.
Let's
So
go.
so
We're not going to
yeah,
dissect a
so
cat though. I mean, that's a frog or something. I don't know.
cat was pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie.
I
I'm not gonna
know.
lie.
I just don't want to offend people. I don't want to
Oh,
offend.
no,
I don't want to.
we can offend the cat people. I'm totally cool with that. I'm totally fine with offending the cat people. Alright, so
Oh,
so the cat out of the bag is our
okay.
conversation today
All right.
is entitled "Identifying Disciplable People: The Fuel to Multiplication." So tell me this, Ken. Why is identifying disciplable people, we're gonna get into, so we're gonna get into
Yeah.
maybe a little bit more about what we mean by that, and
All right.
and really dig into that later on. But before we get to that, why do you think that identifying disciplable people is the epicenter? It's the fuel.
It's the
It's
fulcrum.
the fulcrum, like all of the things that you went down the scientific list of things. Why do you
Yeah.
think it is such an integral part of discipleship, disciple making, multiplication, the desire to see the expansion of the kingdom? Like, why is it the central piece, the key piece to it all?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great question. I think because it's like, if you want to make omelets, you got to have eggs. Like, eggs
Yeah,
are an essential ingredient to making an omelet,
sure.
you know. And and I think that the at the most fundamental place, the reason why, or let's say the reason why this is the most fundamental thing, is because, first of all, it's what Jesus did.
Sure.
Like, literally, Jesus went through the cities, the villages, the communities, um, and he basically communicated that the kingdom was here,
Yeah.
and basically made an offer to people. I mean, this is basically what Jesus did. He made an offer to people.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to open the door to the kingdom for you. All you have to do is to put down what has been your kingdom, what has been your desire, what has been whatever, and take up the kingdom way,
Yeah.
and go all in. I think Jesus, when you look at Jesus when he chose his disciples, you look at Jesus's methodology. Um, Jesus wasn't trying to build a crowd.
Yeah.
I mean, the work that Jesus did created crowds, but he wasn't looking to build a crowd. He only had 120 people in the upper room on the day of Pentecost.
Yeah.
What Jesus did was he went through the world and looked for people who were willing to put down their nets and follow him.
Yeah.
I mean, that was it.
That was it.
He looked for people that were willing to say,
Yeah.
hey, I don't care what I've done. I don't care what I'm doing. I don't care where I've been. I don't care where I'm going. I want to go with you. I want to go where you're going. I want to have what you're offering. I want to. And that was the mission and message of Jesus. And by the way, when he sent the disciples out in Luke chapter 10, he literally sent them out in that same way. Go into the
Sure.
villages, go into the communities, find who's noble, and speak the peace of the kingdom, declare the kingdom to them. And if they open their house and open their oikos to you, then find people that want what you're offering. And like that was the method of Jesus. And so I think we could talk about, we could talk about mobilization, and we could talk about building relationships, and we could talk about spiritual conversations, and all of the various things. Those would all be parts of the components of the engine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But the fuel that fires up the engine is you can have the most amazing engine on the planet, but the fuel that fires up the engine is, are you finding and identifying disciplable people?
Man, absolutely. And I love how you set that up with what Jesus's mission was, right? Jesus's mission was not about size. It wasn't about how many people could he collect and gather together. There were others beyond the 12,
Yes.
right? I mean, there were others
Right.
that walked with him. I mean, obviously there's 120 in the upper room. So I
Right.
mean, there were plenty that
He sent out the 70. It was 70 in Luke 10.
Yeah. So he had plenty.
Yeah.
But he was constantly looking for the most disciplable people. And you see it in, in the calling of the 12. You see it multiple times when you see, him walk by Matthew's tax collecting table and calls out to him
Yeah.
to leave.
Come follow me.
Leave this behind and come follow me.
Yeah.
Obviously there was something that he identified about Matthew, that he identified this person. This is a person that's willing to leave these things behind to come and to follow after me, And
by the way, he wasn't looking for the most gifted and talented and the best.
Yeah.
He wasn't building a team. He wasn't like,
he wasn't getting the right people on the right seats on the bus.
He wasn't doing any of that. My God, somebody. Yeah.
Correct, man. And man, so much of that, like the attractional church model, has crept in. I understand, like there's some business components to the, Jesus even had Judas who cared for the, the money that they took in or whatever.
Right.
So I get all that. But again, Jesus wasn't looking to get, man, how do I get the right people on the right seats on the bus?
Yeah.
He was looking for, give me the most disciplable people. And if they're disciplable, I'll invest into them. And if they're disciplable, then they'll go out and they will reproduce. They'll go out and do the same thing that's been done to them, which I love the Luke 10 conversation. I want to dig into that just a little bit too. But I want to,
which is, by the way, the definition of a movement.
Yeah.
And what you're describing is a movement. Let me throw something out crazy, okay?
Okay.
Conceptually, an institution is where the individual pieces all together create a final impressive product.
Right.
A movement is where the completeness of the whole is found in each individual part. That's a movement.
I like that. Say that again.
Yeah. So a movement is where each individual person carries with them the essence of the whole thing. That when you meet in a movement, when you meet an individual person, they are in some ways fully representative of the whole movement.
Yeah.
In an institutional context, each person all are contributing pieces to a final product. So if you're building something that your missional engine is to impress people to
Yeah.
join the team, to come be a part of this, to, whatever, then it's the result of a lot of individual pieces coming together to form something that the cumulative result is impressive, and it's marketable, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
A movement is where each individual piece in some essential way is representative of the entire essence of the movement.
Absolutely. Which is the, what Paul's describing about members of one body,
Yeah,
right?
right.
It's not about that's I think that is an important piece because when you view it the way you're talking about an institution, then you're going to try to go out and you're going to try to find those pieces that you think are going to be the next thing that really makes it go whatever. And
Yep,
and so what ends up happening is you get a bunch of the most desired, the most visible parts of the body,
yes,
and you miss a big toe, and now you don't have balance because you don't see that as being valuable or important.
exactly.
But in a movement, you understand, like all of that is an integral part of the entire thing, which I think is really, really important. And as a disciple, right? So again, it's kind of like it's not necessarily wrong to wanna have people or places that have certain giftings and abilities and talents, right?
Yeah,
But it's which comes first. And if you find disciplable people, here's what'll happen. God will fitly frame the body together the way he needs to frame it together. He'll put those pieces in place, and you find disciplable people, then what'll happen is they'll use their giftings and talents for the right purpose and for the right kingdom. It won't be about them receiving glory, which again is the whole essence of what the members of the body conversation is all about.
yeah,
No, it's not about anybody being any better than anybody else, whatever. It's about people being disciplable and being used in the place that God has called them to,
bro.
which is such a critical important piece. And I think here's the reality. I've said this for a really long time. I honestly believe, so the conversation about like the rich young ruler, right? If it were up to me, like if I'm in that situation, just historically the way we've done things, you see a guy who's wealthy, he's young, he's a leader, he's got all kinds of giftings and talents and abilities. The attractional approach would be, man, I gotta really wine this guy and dine this guy, don't let him walk away. Let's go to lunch, man. When Jesus puts him in tension, I'm always like, hey, no, let's
Yeah,
go, let's go to Longhorn, bro. Let's go hang
yeah.
out for a little bit. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about what God
Come
wants
get
to do.
on come get on board, and we'll work on that one thing.
And I wonder, Ken, I wonder how many times we invite trouble into the body of Christ because we're trying to find the people that we think are gonna be the one catalyst that's gonna put us over the top.
Bro.
But if they're not disciplable, it's gonna invite trouble. At some point, there's gonna be that conflict, and what Jesus understood was he understood. I think this is a great part of the conversation. Jesus understood if that rich young ruler could not confront that place in his life that you can't serve God and mammon, you're going to have to serve one or the other. If he can't resolve that, there's going to be a place at some point that's going to come in conflict, and he can't follow Jesus. What was his disqualification from following Jesus? He just was undisciplable in that one area.
No, and and because of it, Jesus understands that he wouldn't be individually representative of the
Yes.
Jesus movement,
Yes, absolutely.
because that's the thing. I think that's the thing that we need to understand is that this is the genius of the Jesus movement
Okay.
is that collectively we come together, each part producing and being gifted by the Spirit, each part needing the other. It's so that collectively, as the body of Christ, each piece supports the other.
Yeah.
Right? That's the body of Christ. But in the Jesus movement, each piece wasn't seen in its individual collective context.
Right.
Each piece was seen as a full and complete representation of the whole movement.
Yeah.
Right?
Would you say like Peter standing up with the 11 on the day of Pentecost?
Well, I would actually say I would say it like this. I would say that all 12 disciples, apart from each other, fully and completely were representative of the Jesus movement.
Yeah, and what I was saying was, like, it wasn't it's very specific. It wasn't just Peter standing up and preaching. It was
Yeah.
Peter happened to be the voice in that moment,
Yeah.
but it was all 12 of them standing up together that was a representation
Yeah.
of the Jesus movement together.
Right. Yeah. So like the
Peter
rich
gets
young
the credit, but it
Yeah.
wasn't really Peter.
the rich young ruler, which I think this is the to me, this is the downside to saying, well, Christianity is about collectivism.
Mhm.
It's not. Christianity is not just collectivism, and it's not individualism. That's a human construct.
Mm.
In the kingdom, God fills each individual with the totality of the self-same Spirit. And so disciples are disciples inside the Jesus movement, together or apart.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the rich young ruler couldn't Jesus rejects the rich young ruler because he's not disciplable. And so thus he's not reflective of what kingdom like people are. And I think that's the thing. Like, if you think about like the culture that is produced, the outcome that is produced, like I love Jason Rodriguez said, every single grape has the seed to reproduce within it. That is absolutely spot on. It's not that you have Bob over there and he's part of the skin of the grape, and you've got Betty and Susie and they're part of the liquid of and the juice of the grape, and Tom and Steve and Eric over there are part of the pulp of the grape, and then we got
Mhm.
the
Right.
no
Right.
the grape is the fruit. It's the result. And Jesus said, by their fruit, you will know them. And the fruit is what is representative of the tree. So God said, I will make a tree, and the tree will produce a fruit. And by the fruit, you'll know the tree. And by the way,
Man, that's
in
so
that fruit,
good.
it has a seed. And so each person in the Jesus movement is a fruit result of the work of the Holy Spirit. They're representative of the fruit, is representative of the whole tree, and it has a seed in it. And so in the Jesus movement, I think it's so powerful is that Jesus has created this idea that says, in my movement, each individual piece could reproduce a whole new one.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. In a corporate institutional church, if each part is creating a cumulative net result,
Yeah.
then each individual part could produce the whole thing.
So good.
You could say,
So
what makes
good.
your church grow? You could go to a growth. Okay, so watch. You could go to a growth, church growth seminar.
Yeah.
And they say, how did you grow your church? Well, in the 80s and 90s, they would go listen to Elmer Town, who would speak about, well, the way we grow, you want to grow your church will grow relative to the number of Sunday school classes you have.
Right.
So if you want your church to grow by 30, then create another Sunday school class for a specific niche of people, Okay. So like go create a hyphen group. And
Mhm.
so then have a hyphen Sunday school class, because that was sort of the Baptist growth concept in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Your church grows in direct proportion to the amount of Sunday school classes you have. If you want to, so here's the deal. But okay, so you just have somebody who's your Sunday school director. If you take your Sunday school director and said, okay, now we're going to put you over here and go do what you do,
Yeah.
would that Sunday school director be representative of and be able to individually reproduce the whole thing? No, he just or she just is the leader of a part. And so in an institutional church, you have a music department, you have a children's ministry department, you have a youth department, and no individual person who serves can go and do what they do and reproduce the whole. But in a Jesus discipleship movement, each individual person could literally go and reproduce a whole new one. That's a movement.
Man, that's so good. That's so good. Which is why, Ken, I think, we somebody was asking me this week, they were kind of talking about just my experience, life experience, ministry experience, and whatever. And they asked me about the different seasons of life of being, church, helping plant a church, and then I evangelized, and then senior pastor, like all those different roles and whatever. I said, at the heart of it, I'm a church planter. So we believe in the expansion of the kingdom, launching missions, whether that's a traditional church plan or whatever. We believe in that.
Sure.
My point is, I think one of the reasons. So I want to preface this by saying we honor, respect, value all church planters. This is not I'm not throwing shade at anybody,
No.
but I do believe this is why sometimes we struggle in planting churches, because the model has been not the individual
Right.
reproducing.
Yes.
It's been gather the best team and
Yes.
put the right team, the collective team in place, and the collective team is going to grow. And I'm not against having people do roles and functions, and we do those things. So I'm not against that. But the whole point of the whole conversation is starting the engine. What's going to drive? What's going to fuel it? What's the epicenter? What's going to make it happen? And if you don't have individual disciples that have the ability to identify disciplable people, it at some point you're going to be hamstrung on what you're able to reproduce. You're like you always say, you can produce some addition.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
produce some addition with that,
Sure.
it's going to be a bigger challenge, especially when that model is I hate to use this word because we're not in competition, but there is some level of like how am I going to make my church more attractive as a church plant than the attractional model church, the big church down the road that just built a $15 million complex and has all the things. And what we've tried to say to church planners has been, look, it may start slow, right? And the Culberth mentioned, he mentioned, the a movement is committed to the cause even when the results aren't visible. And I think sometimes what happens is we become so result driven
Oh, bro.
that we want to make that happen. And so for church planners, if you can start identifying disciplable people and get others, let your team, instead of having the best media team or music team or whatever, have the most disciplable people that
Yes.
individually can do what you're talking about, reproduce. It may start slow, but bro, if you get people that are reproducing, that's going to fuel and it's going to launch that church plant better than you can do it if you just make the collective thing so much better.
That's so
Does
good.
that make sense?
Oh, no, it's fabulous. And that's not, and so this is the thing, right? I think that's what you just communicated outlines the idea that says that our missional model, our
Mhm.
missional methodology is the thing we're discussing. We're not, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. At the end of the day, it is, how are you identifying disciplable people?
Yeah.
Gary Gothard said, reproduce what we are. I think
Yeah.
that's, disciplable or undisciplable, either way, we reproduce what's inside of us. And I think that's so powerful because what he's saying there, I think, highlights what you're talking about, because one of the things that got us on this pathway is the fact that we had the opportunity. God opened up a door for us to meet some really, some high level thinkers that aren't just apostolic, like multiple denominations, so it's not just something that is symptomatic of like, well, that's just what's happening in your tribe or that. No, we're talking about people that are a cross section
Yeah.
of like basically North American Christianity. And the thing that got us involved in this, Chris, is the fact that from our own experience and the experience that they were communicating and the statistical data and the analysis, it is that the complication, the dilemma of the
Yeah.
North American church in 2024 is that we have a lot of good churches that are not having missional success.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, how could that be? What do you mean? You're having good churches that aren't having missional success. There's a lot of good churches that have extremely good music. There's a lot of good churches that have extremely good youth programs and extremely good children's ministry. And they do children's ministry with excellence. But they're not in a significant and multiplying way are they growing. And I'm not talking about the apostolic church. I'm talking about the basically North American Christianity. And so I think the thing that we need to really hone in on here is to say, okay, well then what does that mean? It means that doing really good church, having great teams, having great departments, do not necessarily suggest that you're going to identify the people that are open and hungry and disciplable around you.
Yeah.
You could do church and you could gather and you could come together and have 1,000 people drive by your church while church is going on. And of that 1,000, maybe 100 of them are disciplable.
Yeah.
But if they don't turn in, if they don't come in the building, if they don't walk into that space, if they don't, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's not to say that what's going on in there doesn't have the capacity to identify and create disciples.
Sure.
We're not saying that just because we're not just saying that, well, the problem is we've got youth ministries and children's ministries and we got all that kind of stuff. And those things don't know. What we're saying is it fundamentally by itself, without people going beyond the four walls and engaging with people, there is a extremely high likelihood that people aren't going to come inside the building.
Yeah.
There's an increasing likelihood in 2024 that people aren't going to walk inside the building. Ed Stetzer, in his book Lost and Found, demonstrates that from the millennials down to Gen Z, there's a lower and lower and lower percentage of people that believe that what they're looking for is inside the building.
Right.
And so what we're saying is that it doesn't mean that there aren't disciplable people.
Right.
It just means that more and more and more, we're going to have a missional engine that somehow has the capacity to identify disciplable people. That's the foundation. That is the epicenter. Jesus started a movement that said, we're going to go out and find people that want to be part of this kingdom movement. And he sent people out and showed them how to identify them.
Right, man, that's so good. There's so much there, and I want to get into. I want to mention just one thing real quick. Adrian Masuka from our church mentioned. He said unity is the key to healthy growth. I'm not pushing back. Well, I'm gonna push back just a little bit on that. What I would say is kind of the discussion about causation. What I would say is unity is the byproduct of a collection of disciplable people.
Yes.
Unity is the fruit of being disciplable.
Yes. Unity is the cause, or excuse me, unity is the result, but it's not the cause of mission.
Correct. It's the result of disciplable people that are collected together. When you're disciplable, now the kingdom values supersede individual desires or whatever. The kingdom values supersede all that. So a lot of times what happens is, and the reason I mention that is because so many times we preach and preach and preach and preach and preach about unity, but you have to go back a little bit. Not that we shouldn't talk about unity, but if you talk about disciplability, you talk about being a disciple, and everybody's on the same page of the value system of the kingdom, unity is going to be the natural result. They didn't have to tell them to have all things in common. They had all things in common because they were disciplable people. And then that, and this is a beautiful conversation. I'm glad he brought this up because it's a great conversation. Yeah. And I think what happens is the people in the world see a group of followers of Jesus living the better way of Jesus, the different way. And then they're like, dude, normal people don't live like that. Normal people don't live like having everything in common. Normal people don't live in unity like that. What is different about you?
That's it.
Right. So
Or they walk in and say, like when somebody goes to a family who has an amazing family culture, and they walk in and they go, I wish my family was like this. They recognize the difference. So unity plays a role. Like I would say, like without unity, people will walk in and go, I don't want any part of this.
Sure.
So, but to say that unity is the catalyst for the mission, there's a lot of churches that have good unity and aren't
not
missionally
missional.
effective.
Right.
I think, man, Faisal Culbreth brings up, holy cow. He asked the $1 million question. Do you see it?
Yeah.
He asked the $1 million question. How do you culturalize the commission? My God in heaven.
That's the question.
That's the question.
100%.
That is the question. And I want to say, because he says in any local body, this is so true. This is why we do the Mobilized Church podcast. This is why we have the Mobilized Church network. This is why the Dillingham group exists, because he said any local body has a selected few people who will push the mission, but 80%, right? That's the Pareto 80-20. We'll just sit back and watch, right? They'll spectate. If we live the mission and allow it to be a part of who we are, that seed in our culture will turn our world and communities around. And I think that's it. What happens is what Jesus did was he gathered the most disciplable people. He gathered the people who, had the seed of the kingdom in them and were willing to say, plant me. And I think, but that question, how do you culturalize the commission, is, man, that is what Jesus was doing when Jesus. Okay, let me say it like this. Jesus started producing the mission.
Mm-hmm.
We're starting often with sterile churches.
Right.
That question, Brother Culberth, that question that you just asked is a question that is asked out from institutional sterility.
Mm-hmm.
That is a question that's asked that says, why don't we all do this? In the Jesus movement, because Jesus was looking for disciplable people. So what are disciples? Disciples are people who value what Jesus values.
Yeah.
They do what Jesus does.
Yeah.
He invests and then they reproduce it. They are so disciples by nature have a seed in them. They have the capacity to reproduce. The difference between sterility and reproducibility. And the modern church context allows for sterility. Right. That's it, Gary. Working backwards in many cases, trying to revive. That's exactly right, Gary. That's it, man. It's trying to retrofit something that has become sterile into something that is viral.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a hard move. And so what you got to do is you've got to find those that inside that culture, like you said, that 20% that are viral. And then you start recommunicating and finding disciplable people inside that cultural context. It's about identifying disciplable people.
It is. And this conversation, Ken, is just reconverting me all over again of why we do what we do.
Yeah.
And the journey that we're on,
Yep.
the experiences that we've had, because historically, traditionally, the way that we culturalize the commission is preaching. We preach it.
Boy, good job.
And we
We
think
preach about we should be saving the lost. Create a burden.
if we really love the world like we're supposed to, then and not that we shouldn't preach that, but typically what that does is so what he's identifying is that there are about 20% of people within the body of Christ that are at a disciplability place. Again, the attractional model church has created a lot of consumerism.
Yep.
And so there's 20% of the people, not that the other 80 don't love God, not that they're not faithful, not any of that kind of stuff, but there's 20% of the people that are like, man, let's go, let's do this, let's make this happen. And what we've said is the way that you culturalize the commission, exactly what you just said, is identify those most disciplable people, pour your time into them, share their stories, and then show them, because again, you're trying to retrofit. You're not starting from the scratch piece. You're trying to retrofit. So now instead of just getting up and hammering and being like, why don't you love the lost?
Yes,
Why don't you reach your world? You don't love people, instead of doing that, why don't we get up and we say, hey, this is Jeff and Rachel. Jeff and Rachel's been taking so-and-so out to dinner. And as a result of that, Jeff and Rachel, I've used them multiple times in a conversation. They've been working with this family. That family has a teenage daughter who didn't show a ton of interest, but underneath the surface, God started working on her. Yep. And bro, months and months and months of dealing with them and talking with them and whatever. And last Sunday, Crystal got baptized and God moved on her in an amazing way. Now she's open to discipleship. Why? So now we get up and tell that story. Like this is what they didn't do anything spectacular. They just gave themselves. They just were there. They just walked this family through what it means to be a disciple. So that's how you culturalize it, by you showing them, investing into the most disciplable people and showing the world what it is. I want to get to something because I want to hear your thoughts on this. Okay.
Can I ask you real quick on this?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Let's tie a bow around this, because would you say that Jeff and Rachel are representative of the whole movement that you want to create?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that goes back to that culture. John Hummel says you can be faithful but not fruitful. You can be sincere but not sterile. Gary Gauthier says spending a lot of time trying to resuscitate the dead from a natural perspective causes damage to the body.
Ooh. Man, he is so spot on with that, bro.
That's fire, bro.
He's so spot on with that.
That's fire.
That's so good.
So anyway, I think that that's important for us to really convey and to really communicate. And I think that what you're saying about that, man, because there was a larger religious context in Jesus's world.
Sure.
Jesus didn't go to them to create the Jesus movement. Jesus didn't go to the Pharisees. That's why they were ticked off. The Pharisees were ticked off at Jesus because he didn't go to them for them to validate and set him up, and that he did not use them as the catalysts for his messianic ministry.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just think that's huge. So finding disciplable people creates a built-in cultural perspective that is inherently reproducible.
Okay. So that's such a great conversation. So then the question becomes, I think, okay, and it's amazing. We have no plan, and it's just this is what spiritual conversations look like, right?
Yes, right.
Okay, so here's my question for you. The obvious question then is, okay, so what are you identifying? What is it? What does it mean to be a disciplable person? And you mentioned Luke 10 earlier. And so I pulled it up, and it just something like it kind of jumped out to me. And I want to hear your thoughts on this, because I feel like you're going to have some, I know you're going to have some like great theological understanding on this one.
Oh boy.
Jesus sends them out. He sends out the 70, right? The harvest is great. Laborers are few.
Right.
He said, I'm going to send you out into the harvest field as lambs among wolves.
Okay.
Don't take anything with you. And he said, when you enter the house, first say,
First,
peace to this house.
peace to this house.
And
Shalom.
if a son of peace is there,
Yep.
your peace will rest on it.
Yes.
Okay. So
They'll
here's my
resonate
question.
with your peace message.
So that's my question. So, okay. So what is disciplability, and why did Jesus tell them to go and to say peace on your house and look for a son of peace, or what we call a person of peace? Why is that an important thing? What is he talking about? What does that mean? I think you can very easily like gloss over that.
Yeah. Right.
So talk to us about what is disciplability? What is a son of peace? Why is it important to speak peace on the house?
Because Shalom was a foundation stone of Hebrew thinking.
Okay.
It was a foundation stone of what the Messiah would come and bring. It was embedded inside their cultural psyche. They understood, the people of that day understood that peace was not a lack of conflict. They understood that peace was the result of God making everything as it should be. And so, like, peace, shalom is like a stone. If you're building a stone fireplace and you're like, at the first, you could just put a stone in and you can put a little bit of mortar and whatever. But eventually you get to a spot where there's like, I don't have a whole lot of room left. It's like, I got this one spot left and I can't, I haven't found anything, and I don't really want to cut, because then it's not going to look like the rest of them and whatever. And so you're fumbling through and going through and whatever. And then all of a sudden you find one and you're like, wait, I think this will work. And you put it up there and you're like, holy cow, it looks like it was made for it. Okay. That is actually said, they would say that stone is shalom for that spot. It fits perfectly. It was as if it were made for that. So this idea of peace, this idea of shalom, was an idea that they understood, that they were speaking something about the messianic moment, that they were representing the Prince of Peace, of the increase of his government, peace there would be no end, that to order and establish it, right? What is he doing? What is Jesus doing? Jesus is creating a kingdom where everything is as it should be. And so what happens is all of a sudden, when Jesus says, if you speak your peace upon them, a son of peace is someone who wants everything to be as it should be. And because of the fact that they have there's a cultural perspective that everything can't be as it should be without God being where he should be and in your life. And that there's a establishing of a particular kind of order, and that when the things that God wants to be in place are in place, it'll happen in such a way that the kingdom will unfold in your life, in your world, in your family, and beyond. And so when that message resonated, those people were people that were ready to accept the kingdom better that Jesus is offering right now.
Man, that's so good. That's so good. Okay, so then make the correlation and connection for us of what it means, how that plays into. So if identifying discipleship people is the fuel for all of this, then it becomes, it should be really, really imperative for us to become super effective into being like Jesus, to be able to identify who's disciplable. So what does that mean, and how does this what role does this son of peace, this peace, play into our trying to go into our world in a context where we don't understand shalom like that and whatever, like how do we uh, take that, and I'm trying to think of the word, like extrapolate that. That's the word I'm extrapolate that into our context.
Okay, so in a modern context, I think you would first start with this understanding that says that we're not beginning with a perspective that what God has established for centuries, that if all of those pieces come together properly, everything will be as it should be.
Yeah.
Which I think is part of the problem, by the way, and this is a whole side topic, and I don't want to get sidetracked. part of the problem of feeling like that we need to repatriate American politics into pseudo Christendom.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay, whole different conversation. Which would be the perspective of ought defenders, which was the perspective of Pharisees.
Sure.
Pharisees basically said Jesus isn't going to come into a world where people are
right. We got to be more holy before the Messiah is going to come. Right.
So I think that as believers in a modern context, what we have to do is we have to come first from the perspective that everything is not as it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
I think that Jesus sent the disciples in Luke chapter 10 out to identify people who were willing to say, I want everything to be as it should be, and that this shalom litmus test was something that was sort of culturally embedded, that they would have an understanding of what that was and whatever. In many ways, when you're reaching people who don't have that same culture perspective, and you see this in the ministry, like the missional ministry of Paul. Paul in some areas went and he went to synagogues and he disputed and debated with them whether or not this was the Messiah, and how's God bringing shalom and what's the redemption, whatever. But then we find him going into some very extremely Gentile places that wasn't even a perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I came, and he says, I purpose to know nothing among you save Jesus Christ and him crucified. And so I think that what happens is that we can, but here's what's beautiful. What's beautiful is that the Bible says that he's put eternity in our hearts and that we all have a conscience.
Sure.
And I think that what happens is we have the ability as humans to know this can't be right.
Yeah.
This can't be, it doesn't feel like peace. This doesn't feel like, and I mean, bro, like it could be people who've never experienced God before.
Sure.
And so what we do is we can actually offer peace.
Yeah.
Into the not peace.
Yeah.
And those that are willing to say, that listen to you and say, okay, so are you telling me that Jesus Christ is he's the entry point to peace? Are you saying that Jesus is the doorway into this elusive thing that I've not been able to find?
Yeah.
That my life, my life may be a wreck, and I've done everything. You're telling me that there's still hope. On the other end of the spectrum, there's people that say, I've got everything that should make me happy, and there's something still missing. You're telling me that this Jesus piece is the missing piece. The people that have everything, look, the people that have, dude, there are people out there, Chris, that have everything that are like, look, I'm good. I don't need your Jesus. I don't need, whatever. There's no reason to try to convince them. That's where you shake your feet and move on. There's other people that their life is a mess and they're still saying, look, I think I'm going to win the lottery this time. They're
Yeah.
still spending their last $10
Yeah.
on the Mega Millions lottery ticket because they're just still holding out hope that, man, but I know, but my problem is I've been poor all my life. My family's been poor, but I'm going to win the lottery. And they're not willing to accept the better that Jesus is offering because they still want to try it one more time their way. The rich person or the successful person who's like, look, I got what I want, man. I got a good life. I don't, okay. But then there are people on both sides of the spectrum that have everything that still don't, there's still a nagging sense that there's something missing. There's people that are so broken that if they're willing to look at it and say, okay, wait, so Jesus is the door that starts putting things into place for everything to be as it should be. Sign me up.
Yeah.
Those are the people we're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned earlier that, we're having some conversations about incarnational living. This is why incarnational living is such an important part in this whole process, because what did Jesus say? Go there and stay there. Eat with them. You know, engage with them. And I think a lot of times what happens is we get people amped up wanting to do the mission, and what they view the mission as doing is going and convincing people that what you need to do is you need to be born again right away. We believe in that, bro. You
Yeah.
need to be born again. You can't enter the kingdom of heaven unless you're born again of water and of spirit. But a lot of times what happens is we go into convince mode, we go into debate mode, trying to just get them to experience that. And, if confronted, do you want to go to heaven? Do you want to go to hell? If confronted, people that have some openness to Bible, you can convince them that they need to do that, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily disciplable.
Ah,
And so you've got to get engaged in their lives so that you can see, there are even people. So you mentioned, like, some people that's like they've got everything and they don't need Jesus. They don't have anything to do with that. But you can also have broken people that just want anesthesia for the pain that they're in right now.
yes.
Right.
Yes.
So they may be like, oh yeah, I want all this stuff Jesus can do for me, but they may still not be disciplable, meaning, right, the fundamental
Yeah.
definition of a disciple is a person that's willing to let Jesus change what they care about. And so you're not going to know that. I think our biggest problem in truly being able to identify disciplable people, okay, we have his spirit inside of us. If we're producing fruit in our life, discipleship fruit in our own lives,
Okay.
then we're going to be able to identify what it looks like in somebody else's life.
Oh.
And so
Oh.
so
Hello.
it begins with us being that disciple. And again, your Isaac gap, they may be farther down the line, but where they are, they're demonstrating a willingness to let Jesus change what they care about in certain places. And the moment that you see a person is willing to do that, you engage with them and you walk them in this process. I think a lot of our problem has been we're not truly willing. The reason I think Luke 10 jumped out to me today
Yes.
was just it reinforces so much the importance of the relationship, the incarnational living.
Yeah.
When you find somebody who is receptive,
Yeah.
I think it applies to any context. Somebody who is receptive, which is receiving it in a peaceful way. They're receptive and open to, maybe I'm not talking about like just going all in on the doctrine, but the better way of Jesus. They're open and receptive. And Jesus said, stay there.
Ah,
Engage with them, talk to them, eat with them. And he said, as you do that, heal the
yeah.
sick,
Yes. Yes.
demonstrate and show them what the better way is.
There's that because here's the deal. Because part of that is, Chris, part of that maybe if a son of peace is there, they're like, okay, I want that. What are you talking about?
Right.
And
Right.
then Jesus said, I'm going to give you power to say, this is what I'm talking about.
Right.
And they're like, holy cow.
What was Peter and Andrew, James and John? What was the impetus for them? They hear Jesus, they hear the teaching of Jesus, they see him do Messiah things.
Bro, faith comes by hearing, not seeing.
Right.
So Jesus brings them in to speak a word of shalom. And the people that if he just simply says, if a son of peace, your peace will brood. It'll rest there.
Yeah.
You're like a hen.
Man.
If there are eggs, the hen will settle in on those eggs. It'll if there are eggs in the nest in that home, your peace will settle in on that and cultivate those eggs. What's that hen doing? She's incubating. She's the body heat and whatever. And I think that's the thing where what Jesus is saying, like, if there's growth potential, not growth potential, but if there's hunger, if there's desire,
Yeah.
if there's disciplability, those are the eggs, and your peace that you speak, it matches it. And I think, Chris, the thing about it is this is why we say we're looking for disciplable people, is because, and I don't want to make it sound like I don't want to say it's like the law of averages.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that.
It's not a sales numbers game.
Right. It's not the it's not a law of averages, but what it is Jesus did say that you go in and you go into the community, and if they are open to it, stay there.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, when he says don't go from house to house, the word house there is the Greek word oikos. It's not, it's not the roof, under the roof. It's not, don't sleep in their bed and then next week go sleep in their bed. No, it says don't go from oikos to oikos. If the oikos opens up to you, stay there. Stay in that oikos and work that thing. But he says, but if they don't, shake the dust off your feet as a testimony against them. I think that we've got to get to a point where we have to say the first step of mobilization that is almost impossible to get out of people is to say, we're going out of an attractional church and I'm going to go be an attractional person. And I'm going to meet people and I'm going to connect with them. And through my influence, I'm going to make them hungry for the things of God. That's what, in an attractional church,
absolutely,
we want our church system to do that. Then we go out and we say, I'm going to become an attractional person, and we build relationships and whatever, and we cultivate these relationships, and then all of a sudden realize those people aren't disciplable. And you're like, doggone it, I've taken them to eat, I've done it, I've made this investment, blah, 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 blah. And what Jesus is saying is, I know, and this is what I'm telling you, live on mission, be mobilized, connect with people. There's going to be people that you're going to meet today that aren't disciplable today. That's not a problem. But here's the deal. Just like your church isn't the main attraction, you're not the main attraction. What you've got to do is you've got to find people who are open and hungry and disciplable right now. That's why we've got to teach people how to have good spiritual conversations. Yes, connect with people. Yes, build relationships so that your incarnational ministry has the ability to open up trust, to figure out whether or not they're disciplable. That may take a little time, but at the end of the day, and I know this sounds terrible. No, it doesn't sound terrible, but I think in the framework of our thinking, maybe, here's the deal. Find out if that person is disciplable as fast as you can.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you nailed it. That's where I was going to kind of try to land this plane is the church, the institution can't do that. The individual can.
Yeah.
The institution can't go into that person's life and get into that place and find that, but the individual can. And yeah, the attractive church to an attractive person, that's an important thing. And what would happen, Ken? What would happen if we maintained appreciation and the value of gathering? We're not undermining that. So I saw a post recently, and we're not undermining the value of the gathering. It's a vital, important part of what we do.
Did the post suggest that we were?
Not us.
Oh,
but that it has become kind of in vogue, I guess. They're probably, anyway.
Yeah.
So But
If they're not
there's
talking about me, I don't care about them.
there may have been a little bit of a
JK.
there may have been a little bit
Yeah.
of a
Snarky.
misunderstanding of what we say and what we're talking about. We're
Yeah.
appreciating the value of that. But what would happen, Ken, if we gathered in the most disciplable people, empowered them to go into their sphere of influence, their oikos,
Yes.
to go and raise them up to be able to have those spiritual conversations, to identify disciplable people, and empowered to see the demonstration of the better way of Jesus in every way. That it's an expectation that when you go there, people are gonna experience miraculous things. They're gonna experience, the power of God working in their lives as a demonstration. Adrian mentioned about people not knowing the word. That may be true, but the world is more open to the better way of Jesus, because maybe even because they're not clouded by some familial tie to some religion or whatever. It actually kind of makes them open to it. What would happen if we empowered individuals who are disciples to go into the world, to live it out, to show people what it means? This is why we've got to be the disciples. It means why we've got to be it, so we can go show people and then show them the demonstration of the power of God and see who's drawn to that, see who's willing to change. Bro, that's the key.
And by the way, what you just described, you just said, we need a movement.
Yes. Yes.
It must be the Jesus movement. It must be, and that's the thing. Like we say, again, here it is. I'm gonna reinforce it.
Do
okay?
it. Do it.
The Jesus movement. Okay. I think this is so powerful. The Jesus movement it's both and.
Yeah.
It's go and gather. It's not either or. If you're still thinking either or, then you're infected by another virus. But the both and concept is this, and here's why the both and has to be in place. I want everybody to hear it. Ready? I want everybody to hear me. Okay, I'm gonna make it as plain as I can make it. All right.
Yeah.
The missional engine of Jesus is a movement.
Yeah.
The Jesus movement is not static.
Right.
A building is static. An institutional missional methodology is limited. A movement is not limited. They're not limited by time, and they're not limited by location. The primary missional impetus of the New Testament church is go.
Yeah.
It is saturating our communities. It's moving into the places where we learn, live, work, and play. That is the Jesus movement. But the Jesus movement also came together regularly and gathered and forsook not the assembling of themselves together, even when it was dangerous to do so.
Yeah.
And because of the fact that he reaps where he did not sow, there will be, until we so saturate our communities with the Jesus movement, so that we have there's a greater likelihood of a disciplable person coming in contact with someone that is a part of the mobile, dynamic Jesus movement than it is for them to come into contact with the message of Jesus Christ in a static, singular location.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
There will still be Jesus moving on people and drawing on their hearts that we do not know.
Yes.
And where will Jesus bring them? He will bring them just like the Good Samaritan. The Good Samaritan found the person alongside of the road and brought them to the inn and said to the innkeeper, take care of them. Okay. There is a cooperative that happens in the go and gather. The primary impetus is the go.
Yeah.
If we ever make anything that sounds like a repudiation, we're simply saying the problem is we've made the primary impetus the gather, and that's not the primary impetus. It is not the primary impetus of a Jesus movement. The primary impetus of a Jesus movement is go, but we understand that we are not and cannot completely saturate every place around us, that Jesus is going to draw people. And where are they going to be drawn to? In our culture, people still know that Jesus people gather together on Sundays
For sure.
in churches.
Yeah.
And so Jesus will draw hungry people. Now we have the opportunity to take that, not impress them with the way we do church, but for them to see Jesus high and lifted up, see the way that the Jesus people live, connect and see it in a very concentrated form, and then have people inside the church body that said, hey, would you like to go to lunch? We want to connect more. And that becomes a mechanism to how we also find disciplable people. At the end of the day, it's all about finding disciplable people, whether it's in the dynamic going of the mission, or whether it is in the connection of people that we've never met before who happen to show up where we gather. Either way, it's about finding disciplable people.
Boom, shakalaka. That's the mic drop moment right there. That's a perfect way to end it, bro. I love that. I think this is we took a little extra time today because this is such an important part, such an important conversation. And Faisal Culbers, when's the book coming out?
Oh Lord Jesus,
bro! I think that might be a word right there, bro. We've talked about it. We need to make that happen for sure. And again, like we're sharing the things that we've discovered, and what you just shared right there, Ken. The go and gather is such a powerful. We have to go because not everybody's going to come into the gathering. We've got to go into those places and saturate all of it. But then we also understand there are going to be people. We've experienced it in the last couple of months. We've probably had 15 people just drive by and said, I've just felt directed by God to come in.
He harvests where he doesn't sow.
Yeah. And this missional living, we had a young man show up yesterday who got connected to some guys who were living on mission, playing games online.
Wow.
And they started sharing with him about the better way of Jesus. And so what did they do? They connected him with the body. What did we do? We connected him with disciple makers. And, the powerful force of co-laboring. We go where we go. God draws where he draws, connects us with those people. When you go live on mission, God has a way of connecting you with those disciplable people. And we're coming from a place of faith that says the greatest force is the mobilized disciple makers who are so skilled at identifying disciplable people and investing their times that produces multiplication. It is the fuel that makes the engine go. So great conversation today, Ken. Glad we were able to get this in on a Monday.
Ooh.
And appreciate all of the comments and feedback. We didn't get to a lot of them today. We appreciate all of the engagement and just all the encouragement of everybody joining us each week. You make us go. We appreciate that. So we'll be back on Thursday. We'll be back on. Yeah, right. That'd be what, the 3rd, 4th,
Thursday
5th,
of the next
12th.
week.
What is that? The 12th?
Yeah,
something like that. So
12th.
we're back on Thursday the 12th, and we'll be back at this next time. So appreciate everybody joining us today. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving.